Richard, great to see you, and I'm so pleased to be talking to you. I met you about 10 years ago, and I thought, hey, this guy brought up in China, Paris, and New York. He's a cosmopolitan guy. What is he on about? Anyway, so for the viewers to understand, Richard's been someone who worked in the commercial sector for very many years, design, innovation, and so on. But over time, he's sort of shifted his priorities and he looks at how you can connect the dots between art, business, people who have a real purpose. He defines himself often as someone who wants to change how places work and that we all actually work in a completely different way. A couple of things which might be worth noting is he was the ambassador for TED in China and did a hell of a lot of work around all the big TED events that they did. And in fact, this network idea is one of his key things and key, I don't want to say obsessions, but things he's really interested in, because he thinks that if you do it well, you can encourage creativity. And particularly, obviously, he lives in Asia, in Asian cities, but he's got a wider perspective. And in passing, he also teaches in Shanghai on design and innovation. So anyway, hi, Richard. Just one thing to start off with. You know, when I looked at your bio and talking to you, you always seem to challenge the status quo and bring things in from the edge. And that's always difficult for the established institutions, such as bureaucracies. How do you persuade them to shift the way they go about things?
Tough question. Great question. Business school push and teaches all of us about incremental change. And I recently, a couple of years ago, we started having this sort of formula called a 5% change, because there's less risk and it's something that you can actually visualize. We're not changing 50%. We're not moving that much. Let's give 5% a chance. So this is not just city. This is also corporation. This is also academia. And what we have noticed globally is actually this great movement about this idea of 5% change. And this is where some of the greatest thinking is happening. When there is a part of your institution, there's a part of the big engine that's giving permission for something to happen. And that includes corporations, countries, cities, and and also one thing I realized, working with government is pleasurable, is interesting, is enriching, is really empowering. But we realize one of the coolest factors to actually help the government change is actually bring the companies to partner with you, because government trusts companies. Government realize they need to listen to companies more than to individual. So the other part of it is also academia. We're attached to a few important universities in China, in Asia. The Confucius background is listen to the teachers. So the government actually is more respectful to a university team rather than to a consultant. Because one group you actually can buy their service, but academia you really cannot buy their service.
Yeah. No, that's interesting. So you're saying the context is probably slightly different, although we acknowledge universities, that Confucian thing really means we listen. But I also agree with you that somehow when business says let's change things, perhaps government listens more differently. Just another question, because I'm following on from this sort of radical thing that you were talking about, and you've often discussed. Yeah, I mean, there are obviously organizations like Burning Man or Joy Ito who have sort of principles, and these organizations like Burning Man are incredibly successful and have created a movement of some sort of kind. But do you think that energy that they created has actually begun to influence the mainstream, and if so, how? What do you think about that?
Great. A lot of organizations, I'm not talking about religion, but I will refer a little bit to religion. A little bit unlike religion, you refer to God, you refer to greater a calling, but a lot of organizations in the world, they do make things happen, but nobody needs to quote it. Nobody said, our innovation happened because I met this person at TED conference. We were moved by this innovation. We decided to invest in him. We worked with him for the next 5 years, and we invented this. They actually do not give credit to where the origination is from. Yes, MIT and Joey Ito and MIT Media Lab, they've created a lot of change, and they do give credit, of course, to the school. But Burning Man, I think the idea of sharing economy, the idea of Airbnb and Uber and sharing cars and a lot of these things comes from the culture of Burning Man. It is only 1 to 2 weeks a year, but the effect change in the 80,000 people that come together, including the highest and the top of European, Asian, and American companies, is limitless. So they will not say, well, we started Airbnb because we went to Burning Man last year. They actually say, we believe sharing economy is an important one. Why buy too much? Why have that many cars in the city? Why can we not live sustainably and not just talk about it? So I think the first adopters are really important. And I also call these people the edge thinkers. They're people that are thinking on the edge, because the people usually in the core of organizations or government or institutions are conservative and they have to follow rules. So let the people on the edge have the freedom to shake the system a little bit.
Now, it's interesting because Art Kleiner wrote a fabulous book once called The Eccentrics. And what he followed through is that those things we now think are mainstream, he sort of backcasted it and asked them, where did this idea come from? And it's usually someone who's a bit wacky, and the usual problem, we don't believe them, et cetera, et cetera. So I certainly agree with you that the sharing economy and all of that type of thing, which effectively is the new economy, came from sources like Burning Man. I just want to pick up another thing. In terms of city making, or basically development, whether it's rural as well, the whole word human-centered has become so much the latest currency, in Habitat, in the EU's research agenda, and so on. Now, the question is this just another label like sustainable, resilient, and so on? Or do you think this idea of human-centered has some sort of extra strength that might actually change the way we do things individually and in organizations?
Charles, I will answer this question, but I'll go back to the last one just for 1 second, one sentence. We may think that some things come from Burning Man, from some of these principles, but also think about where it came from. It came from 30 years earlier than that, the hippie movement. Hippies, many of the great hippies of the 60s, 70s are the head of the Silicon Valley companies. Because they have put their practice of humanity first to use, to practice, right? So I'm going to ask you answer this question about Human-centric. I mean, I think there are a couple of things, because I try to be interdisciplinary. I try to use the various different experience and learning and cross them and constantly double check and pull things in. From the marketing hat that I wear, any words that have been used too much, I run away from them, because those are sound bites you never want to use again. There are words in my mind that are dead, because all the people that don't believe in that sector, that you want to convince them and buy their belief into your cause, don't pronounce the word climate change, global warming, sustainability, resilience. All those big words become sound bites. You don't hear it, you don't see it. You see it on a page, you flip the page. So I think it has to be the core of what you do and how you word it and how you find a way to convince. I think all the great quotes historically in the world from the greatest people come from the inner truth. They say the simplest words. So I believe human-centric is important. I use other words. I teach a few years a class called Human City. And when that is used too much, I used emotional design. How do you design with emotion in mind? Why does a print ad cost, let's say, $1,000, but a TV commercial $1 million? Because TV commercial or video emotionally reach you a little bit better. So I think human-centered is really the great argument to a lot of the debates. Is the other side of the coin. You talk to me about AI, and I will talk to you equal passionately about human ingenuity, because that cannot be replaced by AI, not into the age of singularity. So excuse me for the light that is blinking.
No, we like the light.
I hope that make people to really look at their speech, look at the conference. There are 500 conferences with the same title.
Mm-hmm.
Think a little bit
so
harder.
basically what you're saying, and I would really agree with you, is that words matter, and we have to try and write more lyrically, perhaps, in order to catch someone's attention and emotion and so on, rather than just saying these are the agreed words internationally, and let's keep them. But I mean, did that
example? That's also coming from you. You know, all the books that I have read from your writing, I think the concept of creative imperative, it is amazing. You know, I use the word because the imperative has not been used in policy making. And I think the idea of creative bureaucracy, many people would think of it as an oxymoron. Are the two opposite things? Why would you put these two words together? But maybe the opposites should be together.
Well, that you've got it in one. That's what we're hoping to achieve. Whether we do so, we'll find out. You know, you said at some point, and I thought this was good, you said COVID-19 is our moment. You know, that sounds quite dramatic. You listen to that in order to, reassess how we think, plan, and act. Can you just give me a couple of examples from Asia, this moment of COVID?
I go back a little bit because I think I will always try to, I'm thinking a little bit slower than I will answer your next question immediately. But I think the idea of language or branding, I'll give a few examples that could be useful and thought-provoking. One of the great brandings in the world I like is actually the city of Austin, which hosts South by Southwest and which hosts many other festivals. And government after governors and mayors they keep the slogan, keep Austin weird. I mean, that says something, because most policymakers will shy away, run away from the word weird. But the idea maybe weird is good, because everybody is just too normal. Okay, and that will be a marketing for industry to come, for young people to stay after education, for festivals to happen. And another thing that we all believe more and more, especially people that organize a lot of conferences, festivals over conference, because conference does not stick people together, does not glue people together. People go to another conference the following weekend, but the festival glue human contact. People create trust, create belief system, like a small ritual, and they stay together, they stay connected. So I think that kind of covers a little bit what we think about language and think about behavior. To answer your question about COVID-19, um, I mean, my work is Asia, China, and also quite a bit globally. I have actually never felt in the last 20, 30 years a more globally humbling time. For the largest corporation that used to be cocky and we know everything, we are the best, they're quiet right now. Same as government. So right now, I think it is a most amazing time for corporations, institutions, educators, leaders, because they're searching. So they want to find a larger leap, because I think one of way my push is 2021 does not follow 2019. Let's just forget about 2020 in all. 2021 does not follow 2019, and I believe 2021 should follow 2025, because in the last 7 months, the world have accelerated probably 3, 4, 5 years in education deficiency, or education online virtual, on marriages, people having baby, people having divorces, family bonding. Everything is happening in the last 6 months that don't think 2021, you go back to anything normal. There's nothing normal that you go back to. Many cities are losing jobs by the million. Many cities are losing small, medium businesses by the 100,000s. So those people are not going back to open their business again. They need to think about the new way to cope. I hope that, but to answer one, I mean, I think there's another answer to your questions. We noticed something else. Medical tests, investment, experimentation, government trials, different experimentations, and they're allowing it to happen, because we're at a time of doubt, at a time of global questioning.
Yeah, that's a good expression, the time of doubt. I like that very much, because it forces you to reflect. I'm also glad that you picked up the language thing with Austin Weird, which is obviously a very sharp example. Can I just ask a question about networks? It's just that I know you've been such a networker type, from TED onwards, and your new thing, the Asia Pan-Asia network. Now, there are so many networks around the world, as you well know. For example, in cities, apparently 400. But what's special about your Pan-Asia network? And do you think it's had an effect or an impact?
I guess by being a creative at heart, and I've been at it since 1978. I believe creative and design means change. Means do not accept status quo right off the top. So even when we were doing TED and TEDx's in China, every year I say we have to be 10x smarter. We have to do things that we never did the year before because we have no client. We are our own client. So if we can accelerate, create better experience, connect people better, connect the speakers with the public better, learn deeper beyond the 18 minutes, that's our job. Because if we don't do it, we don't do justice to all the great people that we're putting together in a room. I have to say, and European is probably somewhere in the middle. America is quite advanced in their social outwardness. I grew up in Asia, in China, spent time in Europe, and also enough time in America to kind of have a little bit of the three difference. Asians are awkwardly social, socially awkward. And 20 years ago, I wouldn't even know how to spell network or ecosystem or connecting dots. I don't even know what you're talking about. But I think in the world that we are in, that one few things that I cherish is the concept of building dream team. Because build the right team and you'll be 100x my intelligence, my know-how. Put the best people together, solve the right problem is the right way. That's the birth of United Nations. That's the birth of everything that is really great before us. So I think how Pan Asia came about came from two governments and two larger entities supporting us and say, how do we inspire young people? How do we inspire the next generation? And I say, and one of the idea is, don't talk among yourself, because the problem in your own city, in your own country, may not be solved by the same people that have caused the problem or that are living in the problem. So let's listen to our neighbors. So the first attempt was with Taiwan, later on Korea, they gave me generously 25 airline tickets, 5 countries, 5 creative people coming together, meeting 1,000 young people and brainstorm and exchange ideas and talk for 3-4 days. And then later on, we did it with 150 people. We went to Korea. The more and more I realized, we also cannot talk about ourselves. Yesterday, I had a very good meeting with a group in South Africa talking about the African ecosystem. And my sharing with them is Pan-Asia is now only a 60% Asian people. We are 40% global. Because if you talk about yourself too much, people know there's an agenda. But if you talk about yourself among everything else, suddenly you realize there's a bigger whole, there's a bigger one. So I think I've pressured myself to speak publicly. Well, I mean, it helps by teaching at school for a long time, but the idea of taking think tanks, move them into do tanks, and each event that we organize per month, we keep it very small because we believe in something called the trust circle. We don't have to explain ourselves. The trust circle exists among each other. So our video is never published because somebody else listening in would not understand maybe what we're talking about. So every single month, we take one topic that we think is important, and we find the top experts around the world. We have about 250 to choose from, and we spend 3 hours on Zoom around these people. We call the inner core, and then there's an outer core for conversation, and then it becomes a very inclusive conversation of everybody. So, I may, if you allow me, I'll just talk about 2-3 topics. One of the topic has been art, design, and technology for good. So how do you filter that what you do is for good? is for humanity good and for social good. The topic that we're exploring in 2 weeks this month, it's network of network, community of community. Because how do we take communities of leadership and great number of people, how do you cross them and create better impact? And the following months, 2 months is planetary elders and wisdom, because at any time people are talking about exponential growth, let's talk about slow down. Who do we have to listen to be more grounded? If the technologists cannot solve the problem, can we listen to our great grandfathers? And the following month, the following one is called extraordinary system thinking. What are the system thinking in the world that is making us more considerate, more mindful in trying new things?
I think that's a great way to conclude what we're saying, because you've set these big agendas. I really like the fact that you started off with about trust, the circle of trust, and to some extent that's what our whole project is about too, is trying to get people like you and all the others we're involving to feel they're part of one potential spirit that wants to go ideally in the right direction and do good things rather than bad things. So Richard, you're a star. Thank you very much for being with us, and I hope to see you all, and face to face, and I give you a virtual hug. Thank you very much.
Great to see
Bye-bye.
you. Thank you for this.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.